सुनने वालों को सिराज ज़ैदी का बहुत बहुत प्यार भरा आदाब, नमस्कार and good afternoon. Welcome to Apna Radio, broadcasting at 93.9 Dublin South FM. Each Thursday from 3 to 4, I'm here broadcasting from the studio to the world. Tune me in. सुनने वालों को सिराज ज़ैदी का बहुत बहुत प्यार भरा आदाब, नमस्कार and good afternoon. You're very welcome to the program. You're listening to Apna Radio, broadcasting at 93.9 Dublin South FM. Every Thursday, each Thursday, I'm here until 4 o'clock and until you get you're tuned into my program. If you're tuning in from India, it's 7:30 and until 8:30 I shall be on air live, and indeed the rest of the world, wherever you are tuning me in according to your own clock, and our clock is local British time, Irish time's 3 o'clock, and that is the time of the live program each Thursday from Dundrum Town Centre in the studio. Now, it is an old hat at this stage. It's not a new program. The program is called Apna Radio. Apna means your own radio, in the news item and flexible item about the India and all the rest of it. And Charmain Colvin is here to the news of the week. So Charmain, you take it away.
Good afternoon. I'm Charmain Colvin and you are listening to Apna Radio 93.9 Dublin South FM. On India this week, American President Donald Trump has officially delayed imposing higher tariffs on US imports, while sending letters to 14 countries, including Japan and South Korea, detailing the levies they face. He also slammed the BRICS grouping, which includes India, and further announced 50% tariffs on copper, which is a major export from India to the US. India is hopeful of a trade deal which offsets or removes some of these levies. Negotiations have been ongoing for several weeks now. But Trump also said on Tuesday that tariffs on pharmaceuticals could rise to 200%. He added that he would wait for a year to take the tariffs up to that level. Pharma or medicines are a major sector of export for India, which has manufacturing hubs in Himachal Pradesh and Telangana, among other places. The US is in fact India's largest export market for medicines, at $9.8 billion in 2024 to 25, which was over 20% more than the previous fiscal. The US accounts for 40% of India's total pharma exports. As for copper, which is used in tech, construction and other key industries, India's exports were at $2 billion in 2024 to 25, of which the US accounted for $360 million, about 17%. Referring to BRICS, the group which currently has 11 members, including India, Russia and China, Trump has said the group was set up to hurt the US and degenerate the dollar. And he told reporters that only any country in BRICS would receive an extra 10% tariff. Billionaire Elon Musk, who owns X, has said he was deeply concerned about ongoing press censorship in India after New Delhi ordered the social media platform to block more than 2,300 accounts, including 2 Reuters news agency handles. X restored the Reuters news account in India on Sunday, a day after it said it was asked by the Indian government to suspend it, citing a legal demand. Many other blocked accounts were also restored, with New Delhi denying its role in the takedown. X posted last Tuesday that non-compliance risked criminal liability. The Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology demanded immediate action, within 1 hour, without providing justification, and required the accounts to remain blocked until further notice. India's IT law, passed in 2000, allows designated government officials to demand the takedown of content from social media platforms they deem to violate local laws, including on the grounds of national security or if a post threatens public order. X, formerly known as Twitter, has long been at odds with India's government over content removal requests. In March, the company sued the federal government over a new government website the company says expands takedown powers to countless government officials. The case is continuing. A week after 3 Indians were kidnapped in Mali, their families say they still have no information about their whereabouts and are concerned about their safety. India's foreign ministry say the men who worked in a cement factory in Mali were forcibly taken by a group of armed assailants last Tuesday. The Mali government is yet to comment, but the abductions took place on a day an al-Qaeda-linked group, JNIM, claimed it had carried out several attacks in the African country. According to government data, some 400 Indians live in Mali, a country that India has had trade relations with since the 1990s. Last week's incident comes after 5 Indian citizens were kidnapped in Niger in April during an attack by armed men who killed a dozen soldiers. There is still no update on their whereabouts. At least 6 people were injured and 10 people died after a section of the Gambhira Bridge over the Mahisagar River collapsed in Gujarat's Vadodara district on Wednesday morning. Anand MP Mitesh Patel said 3 bodies have been recovered and 4 persons rescued so far. According to initial reports, a truck, a van and a car were crossing the bridge when it gave way, sending the vehicles plunging into the river below. The collapsed bridge is located around 25 kilometres from Vadodara city and serves as a vital route for transport vehicles travelling towards Saurashtra. Indian Prime Minister Modi has expressed his condolences and has offered to compensate the injured and next of kin of the deceased. An Indian nurse who is on death row in war-torn Yemen is set to be executed on the 16th of July. Nimisha Priya was sentenced to death for the murder of a local man, her former business partner Talal Abdo Mahdi, whose chopped-up body was discovered in a water tank in 2017. The only way she can be saved is if Mahdi's family pardons her. Her relatives and supporters have offered $1 million as blood money to be paid to Mahdi's family, who have not yet responded to the pardon request. Priya was arrested in 2017 after Mahdi's body was discovered. She was charged with killing him by giving him an overdose of sedatives and allegedly chopping up his body. Nimisha denies the allegations. And finally, India's cricket test captain Shubman Gill was praised by England's legendary batter Kevin Pietersen following his magnificent performance in both innings of the second match between India and England. Shubman Gill concluded a record-breaking Birmingham test with breathtaking knocks of 269 and 161 across both innings, making him the batter with the second highest aggregate of runs in a test match. With the series level at 1-1, the crucial third test takes place on Thursday, with all to play for. And that's all from me. You have been listening to Apna Radio 93.9 Dublin South FM.
Thank you very much indeed, Charmain, for a lovely news item. And how do I say? I mean, what kind of construction is going on in Gujarat, in the city where Mr. Modi comes from, and the bridge collapse, and this kind of things are just unacceptable, you know. The second-grade material has been used and all that I've been reading about it. That's not really acceptable in a modern Viksit Bharat and developed country. When you have a developing country, that's a different thing. But when you have a developed country, as it's called now, Viksit Bharat, then these things are just totally unacceptable. Anyway, the point about what I'm going to talk about it now, well, you know, every day you get up in the morning and you listen. First thing in the morning, what I do is I turn the radio on. And this is my habit since early days of my radio days in BBC. And when you do sort of like listen to the whole thing, you realize that, you know, the news which actually read by people in the RTE and on national broadcasters who are sort of like, you know, still believing in the hope of peace in the world, keep broadcasting the actual war and unprovoked war, innocent war in Gaza. Every morning you listen, a few hundred people have been bombed. They've been moved to camps from A to B, and this morning it was, or yesterday morning it was, Khan Yunis, where has been destitute children, women, or whatever has been left over, in fact, out of 2 million people. Over 100,000 people, 150,000 people has been killed. And indeed, nobody is, we have a, you know, the phrase that these kind of news are, people are immune to these newses and is falling on deaf ear. Of course, our Taoiseach has reacted to it. Our politicians always react to it as a moral failure of the United Nations. We talked about it last week. We talked about it. Wonderful contribution of the world to the peace in the world. Is it really? This is the one I'm questioning it now, because also yesterday, Russians have attacked incredible amount, the biggest attack in Kyiv by the drones. So killing hundreds of people and maiming and destroying properties and lives. And so, I mean, this is something, somebody has to do something about it. And nobody is supposed to be doing it except about talking. I was recently been talking to a friend of mine who is the head of the one of the a religious program in RTE, and he mentioned that his colleague, his classmate was William Dalrymple. Now, do you know who is William Dalrymple? William Dalrymple is a eminent British writer living in India, written many books, including White Mughal and all that. And particularly a very scholarly man who, obviously he is a writer. He writes it for living, and indeed a very high-profile individual. William Dalrymple was in London recently, and he attended this particular conference in the church, in fact. And the church is the only places now where morality is supposed to be protected and supposed to be talked about it. So just sit back, relax, and see what he has to say about the whole thing, because it really is shocking the way this particular news of what William Dalrymple has. It's not shocking because that's what it exactly is, the reality. So that's what it is. Sit back and really listen to this particular piece of information.
This month, 750,000 Palestinians were terrorized, raped, and brutalized out of their homes and farms and villages in the Galilee, from Tiberias, Bet Shean, Safed, and the great Palestinian ports of Jaffa and Acre. They were driven out with napalm and machine guns and machetes, and forced to flee from their olive trees onto the barren sand dunes of Gaza, where they remain. At the end of 1948, less than 15% of Palestinians remained where they had always lived. 85% had been ethnically cleansed, despite the promises of Lord Balfour that, quote, nothing shall be done which may prejudice the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine. The Nakba happened because the politicians of this country enabled it. They enabled it with the Balfour Declaration, and they enabled it with 30 years of British colonial rule in Palestine, during which the indigenous inhabitants were disarmed and their leaders arrested and sent to prison camps outside the country. This country has a historic responsibility, more than virtually any other, to see the establishment of a Palestinian state and to provide some protection for the Palestinian people, who have suffered what they did because our grandparents' generations regarded the Palestinians as somehow expendable and unimportant. You might have thought that this shameful history would galvanize our government to atone for past mistakes and make good for past failures. Far from it. For our leaders do not know the history of the sufferings of the Palestinians because their story is not taught in our schools. The BBC is too frightened to tell their stories in documentaries or news bulletins. The British people are not taught the dark history of our responsibility for this mess. Instead, we as a country still provide diplomatic cover for Netanyahu's extremist administration, which has made its intentions entirely clear. Smotrich Netanyahu's finance minister said last week on television, Gaza will be entirely destroyed, and its population will leave in great numbers to third countries. Yet this government has done nothing. It is complicit with the most public and visible of war crimes. Our taxpayers' money is still being used to send the RAF to assist the genocide in Gaza with British-gathered intelligence, to enable the murderers to kill yet more women and children with aircraft parts made in this country and freely exported to the IDF. Shamefully, more weapons for the IDF have left Britain under Starmer than under the Tories. At this moment, 500,000 Palestinians are facing starvation. 1 million others can barely get enough food. Human Rights Watch has said that Israel's blockade has transcended military tactics to become a tool of extermination. But you cannot suppress the truth. Everyone here in this church tonight knows about this slaughter. More than 60,000 innocents have been killed, and maybe as many as 100,000. This is one of the great moral catastrophes of our time, arguably the biggest moral failure of the West since the Second World War. There is darkness all around us as we wake every morning to see images of yet more slaughtered innocents on our phones. It sometimes feels like this darkest of nights will never end. Yet it is in that darkness that we dream best. And our dreams are not fantasy, they are an urgent reality. We dream of justice and freedom and dignity and decency and human rights. We dream of a world where Palestinians are not burnt alive in their tents. We dream of a world where they are not herded like cattle from refugee camp to await their final slaughter. We dream of a Palestinian state supported by our government, where Palestinians can live in safety and without fear. We dream of freedom for Palestine. Thank you.
Your community radio for South Dublin. This is Dublin South FM.
Could you and your dog spend 1 hour per week bringing special moments to people in care centres? Or would you like one of our volunteer visiting teams to come and visit your care centre? At Irish Therapy Dogs, we have a dedicated interest in the use of pet therapy for people in long-term or daily residential care, a professional organisation aimed at providing a pet therapy service on a national basis. If you with your dog would like to get involved, or if you would like one of our visiting teams to visit your care centre, then please call us on 01 544 6198 or visit irishtherapydogs.ie for more information.
Broadcasting to South Dublin on 93.9. This is Dublin South FM.
We dream of freedom for Palestine. Now, that was a very, very, very heavy and clear words from William Dalrymple. Those who don't know him, just Google his name and then you know who he is. But what he has said is a common knowledge, actually. It's not something that he conjure up and he is talking something out of context. But he is absolutely an amazing individual with a conscience. And, of course, it was in St. Paul's Church in London. Now, if all of that is happening, that this morning also I was listening to one of the doctors in one of the hospitals, which was remaining functioning hospital, and the only hospital, in fact, there in the West Bank or somewhere, in fact, not in Gaza at all, because every single hospital, every single building has been reduced to rubble. Now, he was saying that we still believe in hope, and still we dream for a country called Palestine. Now, where, I don't know, because some people get turned off, some people get annoyed that, these kind of things are regularly and continuously talked about it, because the least you can do is to talk about it, whether it's on air, on television, or on, on programs and things like that. So this is my contribution towards the humanity, towards the insanity of the world and all that, because I believe in peace. I believe in this year's film festival's theme is peace, and engaging the Ukrainian ambassador who can come along and talk about peace in the context of the peace in the rest of the world, because the rest of the world equally requires peace. Our small country, Ireland, has always been at the forefront of, as a neutral country, supposedly neutral country, and it's no longer neutral because of the European military commitment and all that. Where are we heading? I mean, our great-grandchildren or grandchildren probably will be receiving some sort of missiles from Russia or from somewhere in the dark days of hopefully not in our lifetime, but maybe in the future, because that's what the world is heading towards: a war, not peace. And peace is something, the more you talk about it, the more you need to talk about it. So this is something that is very close to my heart, and I really like, the whole process of any program, any life program which is required peace. We are at the tail end of the Muharram program, and not the tail end of it. In fact, the month will continue to last for another month, and I will be talking about it. The next program that I'm doing at the Trinity College in collaboration with in conjunction with, should I say, with Ecumenical Department of Ecumenical, and thank you, Professor Jude, for hosting us again. On the 9th of August, I shall be hosting it, the 19th Annual Imam Hussain Conference of Ireland that I started 19 years ago here at the Taney Parish Hall. And it's continued in some form and shape, just like the film festival that I do. This is another commitment that I have to talk about the oppressed and to talk about the war of Karbala that happened 1,400 years ago, and the inspiration that war actually draws to humanity. For those people who do not have any conscience, for those who do not know what happened 1,400 years ago, the longest remember war and the shortest existing war, because this has started early in the morning at crack of dawn and finished at around late noon time. At around 4 o'clock. So this is the war of one day where the grandson of Prophet Muhammad, Hussein, has stood up on his ground, against the tyrant of the time. So the people of Hussein have actually still exist, and they're the one who are standing up to the current tyrant of the time, because this is the lesson that's been given by him, to teach the lesson to those who are dare to stand up and think that they are invincible, think that they can walk all over the place, of people and countries and things like that. So that's what it is. How do I more say about it? I don't know. So anyway, it will be done in a conference in the Trinity College, and it will be on the 9th of August. There's plenty of time, and I'll be talking about that once the more speakers will be confirmed, from 1 o'clock until 4 o'clock at TCD, Trinity College, Dublin, Ecumenical Department. Now, that's what another commitment is coming up. And Sharad has got something else to talk about an interesting topic about the languages in India. What is the language and what is involved in the language? And a very, very pertinent topic, I must say that, and I'll talk about that once you listen to Sharad's comment about it. Sit back, relax, and listen to what he has to say about languages in India.
We are standing here trying to test out the strength of Indian Republic. We are trying to defend pluralism of Indian democracy. And yet again, we are landing in a situation of unrest, of debate, discussion, and a challenge to the diversity of India. Last week, we spoke about the strength of Indian GCC, the Global Competence Centers of the multinational corporations being set up in India, and how we are exporting intelligence, which we understood was based primarily on the education, the scientific education, the engineering and technology bent of the Indian brains, and fundamentally based on the English language. So somewhere the language has come into the controversy and into the play, whether it is recognized by general population, by the policymakers, by the politicians or not. But then language in India has always been a controversial topic. The language controversy in India is just not a political dispute. It's deeply entrenched and an ever-evolving saga, which is rooted in India's extraordinary linguistic diversity. And time and again, it has shaped the tug-of-war between regional identities, the federal autonomy to the states, and on top of it all, the national project of integration, the unity in diversity. But then the recent developments have only reignited this debate, and particularly in linguistically assertive states like Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, Karnataka, where the central government policies and especially the promotion of Hindi has triggered mass mobilization, and it has brought the lines of political confrontation eyeball to eyeball. To give you a background, India's linguistic fabric is unparalleled in the world. India has 23 official languages recognized under the 8th schedule of Constitution and hundreds of more regional languages and dialects. And they are all interwoven with cultural, regional and historical threads. In fact, there are many words which have come in from the Arabic language dating way back to few hundred years. So it's a composition of linguistically diverse literature, language, communication, and therefore it was necessary in order to have a kind of policy which would reorganize, which would strengthen the interwoven nature of the language into culture and regionalism. You travel 50 kilometers in India and the language changes, the dialect changes, the culture changes. So it is very important to have a common thread of unity through this diversity. The post-independence reorganization of the states in 1956, they were guided by linguistic lines, and it was more so a matter of administrative convenience. The officers, the personnel, the government officials able to communicate properly to the wider population of the area. But then simultaneously, it was also a political compromise in order to accommodate India's vast number of smaller kingdoms and recognizing each of them with their cultural and religious identity. Therefore, to navigate this complexity, the government introduced in 1960s a three-language formula. It was well-meaning attempt to balance a local identity with a national cohesion, and students were required to learn their regional language and Hindi and English. Now the benefits of English we are already seeing in this 21st century. But then back in the history, we see that this formula of three language, it started to fail in the implementation. Tamil Nadu resisted Hindi and found it as an imposition and a threat to their linguistic sovereignty. In many Hindi-speaking states, Sanskrit started to replace modern language. So all that was not really a major issue. In bits and pieces, we did have a problem with the language. Remember, in early 2000, we had the group of Shiv Sena in Mumbai going around asking all the businesses to display their names in Marathi also. We had the same issue or vandalism due to language in other parts of the state also. But then the new national education policy of 2020 resurfaced these fault lines, which were having its dying down days earlier. People were not talking because the communication, the language barrier of having a state language and a national language was getting blurred. It was growing organically as to how people were able to manage their daily business. Many a times you would find that those living in city of Mumbai for decades together have been able to conduct their business and daily life without learning Marathi. Similarly, many of those living in Bangalore need not have an education of Kannada while serving a multinational. But then The new education policy reopened all these old wounds. While it nominally preserves the three-language approach, its suggestion that 2 out of 3 languages should be native to India was perceived by many non-Hindi states as a method, as a conspiracy to push for Hindi. And this ambiguity in the national education policy has become a fertile ground for raising suspicion, particularly in the regions where the governments and the people are skeptical of center government's intentions. So recently, Tamil Nadu, who has been a symbol of defiance more than any other state in the country. So the anti-Hindi agitations goes back to 1930s and 1960s in Tamil Nadu, and therefore have a deep political and emotional legacy there. The Dravidian movement, with its emphasis on linguistic pride and regional autonomy, had ensured that the state's language policy remained firmly bilingual, that is, Tamil and English. Now, if Hindi is being seen as being imposed by the central government, the current state government of Tamil Nadu has drawn red lines. So there are protests, public warnings, and allegations that center is weaponizing educational funds to coerce compliance. They are making headlines. So there is decades of Tamil resistance to Hindi and to central government's outreach for imposing Hindi is now resurfacing. Other than the politics, if you see the sociology of the language in states like Tamil Nadu, Hindi would place undue burden on remote, rural and marginalized students, and that would further widen the educational inequalities. So there is a real issue of imposing a new language and students and children being tested upon that. Karnataka, more or less, through the ages, have been very lenient with the language. It has been very inclusive, more so because it might have an influence more towards the science and technology led by the branding of Bangalore as the electronic city. But then, today, Karnataka has joined also this linguistic assertiveness with its Kannada First policy. Language activism in the state has now intensified, not just against perceived Hindi dominance, but also you can see that in the interstate dispute with Maharashtra over boundary and the cultural issue. The controversy over signboards, the place of Kannada in administration, and the general pushback against the national education policy, they are all part of a broader anxiety over dilution of Kannada identity. Again, there is a suspicion that the central government is pushing in Hindi under the guise of national integration. So again, you see street protest or vandalism and political fights that language is not just a tool of communication, it's an assertion of dignity and belongingness to the state. This is the fundamental that all politicians have very clearly understood, and then they disturb these fault lines over and over again in order to polarize their electoral manipulations. Maharashtra is the latest example of heightened controversy with the language. So early 2025, the state government, which also shares its flag with the central government, the national government, so the state government attempted to introduce Hindi from classes 1 to class 5 in both Marathi and English medium schools. And that is where came the political storm. Suddenly, the opposition parties, the civil society, and the linguistic groups started to accuse the state government of undermining the Marathi identity. Until now, like we just spoke, Marathi and imposition of Marathi was taking the back burner. It was dying down. The issue was not as hot as it was once. But then suddenly it has caught the fire. And within weeks, the policy, though, was reversed, allowing school to opt for an alternative Indian language if the minimum number of students decided. But we still continue to see violence on the street, protest, and leading to a political polarization based on the language. So all these episodes, starting from 1930s in Tamil Nadu until now here in July, these episodes clearly demonstrate how combustible language politics can be. And even a minor shift in the policy can trigger backlash, erode trust between the state and the centers, between the political ideologies, and it can force political recalibration. The Shiv Sena cousins are now getting together in order to push for the Marathi identity. The battle over language is far from a debate. As I said, it is a struggle for an identity. It's a struggle for power, and it is also a contest between the region, between the state and the center. And this Hindi project, though it is well meant to create a cultural homogenization of India, to create an integration, it is being perceived as an agenda, a malicious agenda by the central government. So imposition of Hindi is now not about national unity. It is being seen as a threat to the statehood, to the regional diversity of the country. And in the process, it has led the politicians to rally their voter base, which further is creating a divide in the country. But unity cannot come at the cost of plurality. The tensions between the uniform India and a diverse India is disturbing the very peace these languages were meant to be. So what are the economic and the educational consequences? They go beyond what the regional identity is about. It is going to burden the students in the states, especially from the disadvantaged backgrounds. Imposition of Hindi is not the right answer. Let it grow organically with the choice of the person to use the language of communication. And if there is an imposition, it will exclude the non-Hindi speakers from the central government opportunities. So if Hindi has to be imposed, it's a long way that it will be a common language to streamline governance and improve communication. The bigger issue that I see from this language is the North-South divide. Last week we spoke how the economically prosperous South will create a North-South divide and will hamper the cultural and the unity of India. The language is also going to create a North-South rift, with the Hindi belt having more number of parliamentary seats will now see Hindi as an assertion of a cultural pride and a national identity. So people who know Hindi would associate with India more than non-Hindi speakers. The Hindi belt should not be seen as a cultural imperialism by the government in Delhi. So there is going to be a suspicion. There is going to be a North-South divide. How economically the divide is already happening, we have seen in the last discussion. The language further is going to create a divide, which is not good for the unity of India. Let the language not become a proxy war and stand in for a larger anxiety about autonomy, representation, and the nature of Indian federalism. Let not a non-Tamil speaker be scared to live in Chennai, or a non-Marathi speaker be fearful of violence, street vandalism while living in Maharashtra or in Mumbai. And therefore, there is a voice for homogenization, but then also a respect for pluralism across India. Imposition of a language is not the best policy. Instead, it should be the choice of the students, the choice of the people and the population to pick up a language which best suit their purpose, which best suit the communication with the entities. Because language should be a bridge. It cannot be a battlefield. It cannot be a tool for contest, a proxy war. Today, the challenges of India are manifold. Already, the country has a poor reputation of communalism, of a Hindu-Muslim divide, not just within the domestic boundaries, but internationally, there are questions raised about the growing intolerance of the Indian society. If you add language to that fire, India is going to lose economically. Any disturbance, any incidents of violence on issues like language, culture, religion is only going to deter the investors who are more than willing to come to India because of the freedom that India gives to its residents. Today, if India has to stand against the might of China, today, if India has to counter the effects of Pakistan and China together, the growing unrest in Bangladesh, then India has to mend its ways in order to create a strong republic, a plural republic with unity and diversity. The challenge is not to speak one language, but to listen to all. And in that listening lies the essence of Indian pluralism. And we have to defend that pluralism. With those thoughts, I hope the language issue and the controversy comes to an end. As a nation, we move forward with growth and prosperity for all the citizens. I leave you until next week. Stay safe, stay informed, and dutifully ask questions. Bye for now.
Dublin South FM.
You wouldn't buy a car without knowing its history. So why would you buy a story without knowing who's telling it? Come here and I tell you. It's not always easy to verify what you see, read, or hear. But now there's help. Visit www.bemediasmart.ie. Stop, think, check. Be Media Smart. Brought to you by Media Literacy Ireland, supported by RTE.
93.9 Dublin South FM.
Indeed, welcome back to the programme. That is Dublin South FM. It's broadcasting at 93.9 Dublin South FM. So what Sharad has said in this clip, that makes sense, that country has to move on. How country has moved on for 70-odd years, despite all the differences. And mind you, these is, as he referred to in one of the, in his discussion, is the Constitution. One of the article or eighth Constitution actually gives a emphasis on the language. The language has never been the problem as such, which is now surfacing right, left and centre in Maharashtra, in different countries, and north-south divide and all the rest of it. How did India survive 70-odd years with the different language? In fact, somebody asked me, how can you live in a country where you have so many languages and so many dialogues and dialects and all the rest of it? So I said, look, because English is a combining language, English is from north to south, to east to west, from, common language. And thanks to the British, who did the good job in that sense, that they have actually created a language which was spoken widely now among all community members, whether they are in south, whether they are in north, and all the rest of it. So English language and the advantage of the English language, which has been, dotted around in entire India, the institution, the schools, English medium schools, English language schools and all that. And the graduates who are coming out of it, they are the one who are running the multinational, the companies with Americans or British or European languages, countries operating in France, Germany, and all that in India, but through the English language. And this is what is sensible things to do. So people who have nothing better to do than create this kind of nonsense issues should think about it, about the development, about the real issue, rather than just bickering about it and creating tension, destroying properties and businesses and things like that, and demanding people, and particularly in the state of Maharashtra, which is again, the current government is demanding unreasonable things. So a lot of actors who are working, a lot of filmmakers who are sort of based in Mumbai, which is the capital of Maharashtra, are talking about it, that why are we sitting here? Are we a Hindi-speaking people? We write scripts and films in Hindi. So how come Hindi language industry end up in Mumbai is the big question. And the answer for that, after Second World War, a lot of production companies, moved to, because it was the economic capital of India. A lot of people have moved, studios were set up, and those studios were being served by the Hindi-speaking people, those who are writing scripts, those who are making films in Hindi, and therefore you have the Hindi Urdu, I would say, because most of the script writers come from the Uttar Pradesh, and were the one who were actually keep going and keeping the industry going, and those films were being super hit films, liked by the rest of India, rest of the world, and so therefore they keep attracting the talent from the Uttar Pradesh, from north of India, who end up going to Mumbai, whether they're an actor or whether you're a writer or you're the director, you end up sort of working there. So that is the reason why Mumbai and Maharashtra is now getting finicky about their language. But that's an argument, and that's a dead argument in that sense, that India should be treated equally, progressively, and all language should be given their due respect. This three-language policy that has existed for years, that is local language, local regional language, Hindi language being a national language, declared by the late Mrs. Gandhi, Indira Gandhi, made a Hindi language, and English, of course. So In the South, that may not be the case, whereby there is a resistance for Hindi, and they only do believe in two-language policy rather than three-language policy. But we are all benefit if we have, like myself, if I take example of myself, I grew up in UP, Uttar Pradesh, in Lucknow, where the school was an English medium school. In the beginning, it was Hindi medium, and then I moved to English medium in the third level college, Christian College, Lucknow. And then, when English was being used as widely as the common language for communication by the professor and the students, that is the case for most of the people. So English language, and those who are purely come from English-speaking La Martiniers, Colvin, all of those colleges, St. Francis Xavier, many English medium schools, including Christian College, which was also in between English and Hindi, because they were taking the people from the Hindi language high school intermediate branch of their own. But then again, when you grew up with three languages, you have, and of course the home language was Urdu. Urdu is also a very important language. It's an Indian language, wrongly understood and wrongly talked about it as a Pakistani language. That is absolutely nonsense, because it's born in India during the Mughal period, yes, because it's a language merger of Arabic, Persian and Persian mainly, and of course the local Hindi language merge into it. So there is no such thing like a pure language. It's all Khichdi languages. They're all mixed with each other. But if you are fluent in English language, your prospects for jobs and your opportunities for you are not restricted. And if you can communicate in English well on the platforms, on the stage, or on the speeches and things like that, then you are very well respected in society and has been called out that you are an educated person. Now, that is also a point that we'll talk about at some other time. But that's how the British colonialism worked. British colonialism created the inferiority complex for those who could not speak English language. So those parents who send their children to English language school considered to be the most, progressive children, and they progressed, and they end up actually leaving India and working in America and Britain, and like myself, I end up working in England and now in Ireland. So this is a perfect example of those people who have English language that they can now in India, as Sharad has mentioned, that there are a lot of multinationals working. Anyway, it's a long-winded topic, and you can talk about it until the cows comes home, and you will not receive any conclusion on that. I am in the mood to talk about the Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan. Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan is one of the greatest Urdu qawwali singer who sang many qawwalis. So sit back, relax, and enjoy some of the qawwalis. This is a Qawwali style that it starts with a clapping. And years and years ago, the Qawwali concert took place at the National Concert Hall in Dublin. And the review in the Irish Times was they were happy clappers. That is Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan, one of the greatest Qawwali singer of the world, who no longer with us because he passed away many years ago. But his voice is, the prominent voice, and his style of Qawwali is with us for the eternity. That's all I can say. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the program, and enjoy the weather. It's going to be the hottest weather, hottest weekend. All week has been very good. So enjoy, and I shall be back same time, same place next week. But in the meantime, I would give you a flavor of Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan, who is, as I said, has sung many, many, many songs, which has been, oh yes, and of course, he had a break in Hollywood as well with Dead Man Walking. What a great break it was by Tim Robb has given him in the film called Shawshank Redemption. Shawshank Redemption is the one which... Oh, no. He was starring at Shawshank Redemption, but the film called Dead Man Walking was the one who he gave. Check it out if you have not heard about this single of this Qawwali, Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan. Anyway, bye for now. Have a great weekend and have a great week. I'll see you next week.